just support me with being who I know that I am. And so, and that was a challenge of just having to deal with how society then perceives you as, a black man in this world, and also just dealing with, losing spaces, losing friends and community because, now I started transitioning. And so that's always something that is, can be a challenge to deal with. And, I've gained some new community and I've lost some old ones, because not everyone is into embracing people's gender fluidity and gender identity.
Yeah, true. Nice. Now, some people would argue that the way you're feeling right now, or the way you feel, or the way you felt, isn't a part of a natural process. They would want to say that you chose, to be the person that you are. So please, can you tell us that your need to transition, did it happen for you naturally or you initiated it? Please tell us.
For me, I think it did happen naturally. It wasn't something that I was contemplating for years and planning out how it would happen. As I said earlier, when I think it was like 2009, 2010, just was going to a different period in my life and just of growth professionally, emotionally, and seeing that I was at a new chapter. I believe that part of that new chapter was also my gender fluidity.
Okay.
And and I think it happened in a way that was natural for me.
Thank you so much for putting us through to that, Seyi. Now, do you have to see like a doctor or someone that would determine your readiness to transition, and will you need a doctor's approval to actually transition? That is still talking about your transition. Tell us, please.
Well, each state is different, and each country is also different.
Okay.
The way it worked out for me in New York is that New York is a little easier, I'll put it that way, and just very privileged to have a bunch of medical institutions here where you are able to go and talk with doctors and get access to hormones.
Okay.
There's some places where they require you to see, a psychologist or a psychotherapist for a year, and then get approval before you can even get hormones and start to take that to medically transition. I was just very privileged and just really am grateful to have access to Callan Lord and some other medical health centers here in New York City where you can have access, and it's not waiting 12 months before you can start your process of medically transitioning. And so even though I had to go to a doctor, it was something that after seeing the doctor for a little bit and just talking about like who I am, where I'm at, what do I need, given just, my thinking around my body and gender identity, and knowing that I wanted to embody my masculinity in a different way than I had embodied it. They gave me the okay to get prescription for testosterone, and knew that I was somebody who was culpable and was in a place to be responsible, and that it was something that I was doing to be myself and not necessarily to run away or to be somebody else. Okay. And so that was exciting to be able to get the approval from the doctor and then start the journey of medically transitioning.
Great. Now, how about surgery? Will you have to change anything physically? And is this even necessary? I know some people are seriously curious to know about this. Most people think that for people to actually fully transition, you have, to take that step, to go for surgery to change certain things about yourself. Did you have to do this too?
In terms of thinking about surgery and if I would change anything physically, that's not where I'm at. That's not something that I'm like, oh, I need that, right? You know, having like top surgery or bottom surgery or nose or any type of surgery for that matter to feel more like myself. Like I know that I'm in the body that I'm supposed to be in, and so I'm okay with that. You know, there's moments when you're just like, oh, I would look better in that shirt, you know, and whatnot, but I haven't come to a place where I'm like, oh, I want to have top surgery.
Okay. Now, how do you deal with people's negative behaviors toward you, especially when they get to discover that you are who you are? I wouldn't want to use any label, no. Please tell us.
It depends on the situation. It depends if I'm alone. It depends if I'm like, all right, I'm ready to fight in this moment, and what my level of comfort is, and where my voice is at the time in terms of dealing with transphobia. But it can be exhausting, and you know, and it's not something that everybody needs to know. Like if I'm at the grocery store, you know what I mean, and stuff. But there's been many times, that I've wished that other people were there with me to have my back, so I wouldn't have to like feel so alone in this a lot of times, and that I have to have my own back and defend myself, and that I can't just have a minute to breathe, you know? So I think that's something we always need to think about in terms of like who our trans family members are, our gender non-conforming family members are, and how do we support them during this process so that they're not alone, because it's a lot to deal with and to navigate, you know, and having community support is really the only way to get through it, because it's just too much to navigate on your own, you know?
Yeah, really true. There's so much for one to actually take on. Now, have you ever wished that you were someone else? I mean, have you ever regretted your decision to transition? Because I have read things about people who transition and later regret their decisions. So have you ever felt any form of regret or guilt that lingers? Please tell us.
I don't have any regrets around transitioning. For me, it was about supporting to embody and have my spirit align the way that of who I am, and so I have no regrets in doing it, and I know it's part of my journey and part of my growth, and that's where I'm at, and that's what I needed to do for myself, you know?
So true. So good to know that. Now, some people would say that you're not happy and stuff because they feel that you should be happy in a certain way. So can you please clear things up and tell us, are you happy and comfortable in your own skin? Please tell us.
I'm happy with who I am, and you know, I'm just working to get that image in my head more to what I see in the mirror and whatnot, you know. So but yeah, that's a interesting question to answer, you know.
Thank you so much for answering that. Okay, are your parents alive? And at first, you know, how did they react to your news about your transition? I mean, did you wake up one day and say, hey mom and dad, I want to transition into a man or woman or something? Or you went through the whole process before actually telling them? Please, what was their overall reaction? Please tell us.
That, you know, Nigerian parents, oh my, what are we going to do with them, right? It was a journey. Both my parents are still alive. They're not together. And so they've both had different responses in terms of being able to be with me who I am. My mom, bless her heart, like she's been one of my biggest supporters, you know, as I've transitioned, and, you know, in terms of my father, you know, he's not there yet. He's still trying to deal with the whole queer thing. He still hasn't come to terms with that, even though I've been out since 1997. But, I'm hoping that my father will get to the place of supporting me, and also my siblings. They still are wrapping their whole heads around gender neutral. That's still something that they're trying to deal with and whatnot, but I'm hoping one day that we can all be on the same page and That would be really, really great, you know?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Shay, for sharing that with us. Some people say that once a man is always a man and vice versa. What do you have to say about such a conservative notion?
Yeah, besides that being a conservative notion, it's also like a falsehood. You know, we are who we say we are, right? And so gender isn't what's between our legs, right? It's what's in our head, right? That's just garbage. And I think people just need to like get those notions out of their heads.
So true, Shay, so true. Now, the $1 million question comes. Are you religious? And if yes, which religion do you identify with? Please tell us.
I'm, a traditionalist, or a Yoruba practitioner, or a West African practitioner, and that's the way that I identify. And I've seen it's been more accepting, and it's also part of my lineage and who I am, and it's been a space where I feel more comfortable within it, you know, not trying to knock Christianity or Islam, you know. However, that hasn't been something that I've wanted to practice, and I haven't seen a whole lot of it have safe spaces for people who are gender fluid, or whose gender identity isn't what people want it to be, right? So I felt more comfortable in terms of like being a Yoruba practitioner, given that who I am.
Okay, now this is going to be really funny. I have heard about people who feel, very insecure, especially when a transsexual person wants to use the same restroom with a biological male or female person. Have you ever experienced this before? Please tell us.
Yeah, in terms of thinking about, that is a very crazy thing when people get all crazy and, not crazy, but people's homophobia and their transphobia and their oppression and all their own baggage shows up when they're like, oh my God, I have to use a restroom with somebody who's trans or gender non-conforming, and they only want to be in a restroom with somebody who's cisgender, you know? I've seen that more happen in terms of cisgender women's restrooms, because there's this whole, we're going to be abused in the restroom, and that's something more that I think like end up with like, tract infections and whatnot, because you're like, it's not safe for me to use the bathroom. I'm just trying to pee. That's it. Like, stop policing me in the bathroom. And so that's a big deal. And the violence has existed like that, or even looking at the locker rooms when people are like, we have to protect so-and-so, and you can't go in there, and the stares you get, and, not being able to go. So that's been a bit of the mess, and more of the spaces where I've experienced violence, or like being unsafe because I'm just trying to pee. Anyway, so that's been interesting. That's been very, very interesting. But I think there just needs to be more conversations and work done around that.
Yeah, true, Shay. I agree with you. There's so much work that needs to be done. Now, what do you have to say to those people who say that transsexuality is a sin, or that transsexuals are mentally ill, and as a result use the medical term gender identity disorder, in that it is unnatural for one to want to be or identify with something other than their birth gender? Please tell us something about that.
In terms of what I want to say to folks who say that being trans or gender non-conforming is a sin, I'm like, get over it, It's never been a sin. It's never been a problem. If you look at throughout, if you look at in a historical context or historical context, there's always been people who have been gender fluid in every culture. From Nigerian culture to, if you get specific, to Yoruba culture, Igbo culture, Hausa culture, you name it, we have always existed. We've always existed. I wish, more people would get behind that, and especially like these different religions that are like, you don't have the right to be. But yeah, it's something that is very natural, We've been around since the beginning of time. There's a purpose for us, and we will continue to be here. And so how do we honor people in all our loveliness of our gender complexities, our gender dynamics, our loving selves, right? And just allow people to be whole and healthy human beings. So that's what I think about that, you know?